Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you are joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure that you like, make sure you subscribe. If you're joining me on Facebook, make sure that you like the page. A lot of things going on this week. You know, early in the week, every time I come on here on a Tuesday, it's usually me. I'm telling you about the other things that I have going on for the week. Today is no different. Make sure that you are checking out that new edition of a Giants issue that just dropped on YouTube yesterday. Join me every Monday at 6 o'clock live. For a Giant issue. I go over something that's going on in the world of the Giants. This week, I was joined by Emery Hunt, a football game plan, really good friend of mine, who was at Giants rookie minicamp. We discussed what was going on there, our expectations going forward, and a little bit about rookies overall. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you check out the Gene Therapy podcast and column. That is on CWN Sports. There'll be a new one dropping today. I got an opportunity to talk with a really good friend of mine, Tom Nelson, who is heavily involved with Rivals Nation up in Boston. He's also the head basketball coach at Bremer and May in Boston. So you want to make sure you check that out. We talk a lot about travel ball and how the world has changed from what we used to know to what it is now, the differences, and we really get into a lot of the minutiae. You're not going to want to miss that one. And then obviously check out any one of those articles from Giants Country and the Athletic that will be dropping this week. We appreciate all of the patronage as always. For me, I'm not just called Coach Gene Clemens. I think most of you know by now I do actually coach. The interesting thing about spring football, because we are in the last week of spring football, we have a spring game on Friday, and the one thing that I always tell people about spring is that it doesn't really matter what level you're at. Spring should have some type of legitimate purpose. But it's not always about the games. And in fact, I could argue that the games are the least of the worries when it comes to spring football. In most cases, spring is set up as an evaluation period to see what it is you've done and how it is you've improved from the time we left football at the end of the season until now getting ready to go into the summer. So here's the one thing I'll tell people. Number one is you have to actually miss football. It's not a year-round game. It should not be a year-round game. Every time I hear people say that football is year-round, I cringe, because that means you have to be 100% focused on football year-round. Well, how do you ever miss it? How do you ever get the itch to play it again if you're playing it all the time? So I think there's definite advantages to not playing all the time. With that being said, that doesn't mean that training is not year-round. You should always be training your body in some type of way. Should you do the exact same thing 365 days a year, 7 days a week? No, you shouldn't. But should you be doing something that is athletic on a regular basis? Absolutely. The worst thing that happens is, and this is especially true with offensive and defensive linemen, you leave the season, you don't do anything worthwhile for 4 to 5 months, and then you come back and you haven't gotten any stronger, but you've gotten much bigger. You haven't gotten any more athletic, but you've gotten much bigger. You haven't gotten any better, any more technically proficient, but you're bigger. And bigger is not always better. I see it every day. Big kids who are utterly useless. Not because they can't be good, but because they've spent no time building up the mental and the physical capacities of their body. Because if you're big and you can't move, then what good is being big? If you're big and you don't know what you're doing, what good is being big? If you're big and you're not technically proficient, what good is being big? So that time from the end of a season until spring, when I get to spring for those 10 days, 14 days, 16 days, however long it is, wherever you are, I get an opportunity to see what you've been doing the off season. For some of you, it's really simple. Hey, we've been doing 7-on-7 stuff. Congratulations, that's great. You're doing something, but 7-on-7 is not real football. 7-on-7 is 7-on-7 football. So there are some things that you have to be ready for when you come back to real football. Number one is, how did you improve your body? Because you get hit and you hit people in football. And if you have not improved your body, then it doesn't matter how good you are at high pointing balls and going to get it. It doesn't matter how good you are at catching slant routes. If the first time you get hit, you're broken because your body hasn't been built up and because you haven't taken contact in somewhere close to 4 to 5 months, who cares? The best ability is always availability, right? So if the best ability is availability, we need to be building our bodies up so that we can continuously be available. Number one thing that I see that skill guys don't do enough of. Talked about offensive, defensive linemen. This is what all the rest of them don't do enough of. They don't do enough stretching. The limited flexibility of athletes today is to the detriment of the athletes. They are always pulling hamstrings, pulling quads, pulling groins, messing up their ankles, messing up their knees. Why? There's no flexibility. So when they get rolled up, they're hurt. When they pull out, and they start to try to grind, they get hurt. That's what happens. So when we hear that, when we see that, we know, oh, that person's not flexible. I don't even have to see someone stretch to know that they're not flexible. Flexibility is one of those things that we can see immediately just as soon as you start running. Oh, that dude's running. Yeah, he's not flexible. When you start on winding down, he's not flexible. Flexibility is something that all young men can do. So for me, in the springtime, I want to see what you've done. But there's some things, again, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, don't eat yourself out of a job in the offseason. Do some conditioning work. Get stronger. Get more athletic. Skill guys, stretch. Get in the weight room. Strength and flexibility go further than 7-on-7 tours. Yes, I know exposure is everything. I get it. But you got all summer too, right? So work on your body and then start to, you can do both. 7-on-7 and get in the weight room and be flexible. You can do both. Coaches, spring is not the time to beat your kid's head in. Yeah, I know everybody wants a physical team. Everybody wants a physical team. Even teams that are finessed by nature want a physical team, but just beating their heads in, banging, 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 that's not going to get the job done. 3-hour practices, 4-hour practices, they're not going to get the job done. That's not going to build what you want to build. For coaches, the spring should be all about skill development. If you're not developing the skills of the kids that you have, then what are you doing? Right? Now, again, somebody might say, nah, he's wrong. That's cool. I'm not saying that my way is 100% the right way. I'm just telling you from my experience what I believe works best. The spring game is not a showcase for what you're going to be in the fall. I believe that a lot of coaches believe that the spring game shows to people what you're going to be in the fall. I don't believe that's true at all. The spring game shows you play a spring game versus another team playing a spring game. You're trying, if I wanted to showcase what I'm going to be in the fall, I'm not playing any of those kids that aren't going to play for me in the fall. I'm playing only starters. This is a real game. I'm not trying to work in the 2s and the 3s no. I'm trying to win a game and win a game impressively if that's what the goal is. But if we're trying to work 2s and 3s into games, if we're setting up a quote unquote JV time, any of that, then the spring game isn't about what you're going to be in the fall. It's simply about, here's a chance for you to play against another team right now. It's overrated. It's overrated. I'm not going to get anything from the game that I didn't get from practice. Man, I'm telling you, I've seen so many impressive things from kids at practice that there's a chance I may not see in the game because they may not get that opportunity to show me it. So am I going to do away with 10 practices or 9 practices or whatever it is worth of information that I've gathered for one quarter or 2 quarters or whatever it might be of a spring game? No. So what you do in practice matters more than what you do in the spring game, right? Now in the fall, that's a different story. If you're not producing in the game where wins and losses matter, then guess what? You got to be replaced if you're not getting better. But in the spring game, if you don't do that well in the game, but I see what you've done in practice, okay, let's go into summertime. Let's work. Let's work on improving those things. Let's see if we can continue to get better. And if we can't get better, somebody else might have to step up. The worst thing you can do as a coach is see one of your kids, especially one of the kids that your team's relying on to be successful next year, get injured to the point where they can't start the season. So sometimes all of this banging and banging and banging, it's not healthy. If I had my way, to be honest with you, I'd probably only put pads on maybe three or 4 times during the spring. If I really thought about it, and I think a lot of times a lot of coaches are afraid to just be uniquely them because the way they've learned the game and the way that everyone else might operate as a coach would tell them that they're wrong or would tell them that they're doing it the wrong way. I am not afraid to be authentically me. And if people don't like it, they don't like it. I didn't get into coaching and ascend to a head coach level so that I could do what other people thought that I should do. I got in to do what I believe would be in the best interest. Now, as an assistant coach, I do what the head coach wants done. Why? Because when I'm a head coach, I want assistant coaches to do exactly what I want done. So I pay that respect always. But like if I was running now, I do believe, like I used to, when I was a head coach, I used to have spring ball. And when we would go through spring, it would be a lot of uppers. Helmet, shoulder pads, not even like thigh boards. I don't want you even remotely going low. Helmets and shoulder pads, FUD up. Now that I think about it, I would have probably 4 hard days of we're going to put the pads on. I'd put the pads on one day. I'd probably have another 2 days without pads, then 2 days with pads on, then another 2 days without it, then 1 day with pads on, and then let's go into whatever it is we're going to do for the rest of the spring. That's probably it. 4 days where I saw legitimate boom, 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 boom. And now it's really incumbent upon me and my staff to make sure that we coach those players to know that just because we don't have on pads doesn't mean we don't go hard. And that's a tricky part, especially at the high school level. But it's different at every level, right? So in college, that your spring game is important because you're competing against the other players on your team. There is no, oh, my spot is cemented. If somebody sees something in spring, you can easily be jumped, and you've got to be ready for that other group of people who are coming in to take your spot. So that's a real thing. In high school, it's what I say. At the youth level, guess what? You guys should not be doing spring. At the youth level, there should be no spring anything. Why? Their bodies are so little. Why are they doing so much football? Why are they crashing into each other so much? Those are bodies that are still developing. You know what they should be doing in the spring? Other sports. They should be running track. They should be playing basketball. They should be playing baseball, soccer. They should be doing something other than football. Get them in the summertime and get them back into football mode. That's what it is. It's the ABCs of spring to me. To all the coaches out there that are finishing up spring or have finished up spring, congratulations to you on another season, another one in the trenches. To all the players out there that are finishing up spring, this is not the end. This is the beginning of the next year. This is the beginning of the next year. Don't let your summertime go by doing nothing and then try to roll into the fall or roll into the late summer when football starts and think you're going to be good. You're not. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get passed. You're going to get beat. To the fans out there, show a little grace. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So if things don't look that good in the spring, guess what? They're figuring some things out. And to everybody, remember that the game is supposed to be fun. So treat it that way. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. We do this thing a few times a week. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. And if you're joining me on the YouTube channel, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, hit that little notification bell. Ding. Till next time. Peace.